My family celebrated my mother-in-law's birthday, but I wasn't invited to the family photo. My aunt whispered loudly, "Just keep her out of the frame." I smiled and said, "It's okay, I don't belong in perfect pictures." An hour and a half later, a message changed everything. "I always thought if you showed up, brought the casserole, smiled at the right people, and laughed at the right jokes, you'd be in. Family would embrace you because that's what family's supposed to do, right?" I clung to that idea longer than I should have. Foolishly, maybe. Definitely foolishly. My name's Laura Whitman, and before everything fell apart, my life was comfortable. Nothing shiny. Nothing to brag about. Just normal. I lived with my husband, Caleb, in a modest 2-story house on Tremont Street in Albany, New York. We'd been married 7 years. No kids. People stopped asking why after the 3rd year. Truth was, I wanted them. Caleb said he did too, until it started sounding like an inconvenience to him. He wasn't a bad man. That's the tricky part. It's easier when people are outright evil. Caleb was nice, polite, helpful when it suited him. But deep down, he stayed out of things. Stayed quiet when his family picked at me with their polite little barbs. Stayed neutral when I needed him to defend me. I told myself love was about compromise. About patience. I told myself a lot of things. Anyway, it was a Sunday afternoon in late March. Still cold enough to need a jacket, but you could smell spring struggling to break through. Caleb and I were heading to his mother's place in Clifton Park to celebrate her 70th birthday. "You sure you want to bring the lemon bars?" Caleb asked, glancing at the container on my lap as he steered the old Ford Escape onto I-87. "She likes them," I said, fiddling with the lid. "She said so last Christmas." He grunted, like he didn't quite believe me but wasn't about to argue. The drive was quiet. Caleb tapping the wheel. Me staring out the window, trying not to think about the last time we were at Marlene's, Thanksgiving, when Aunt Brenda had accidentally forgotten to set a place for me. When we pulled up to the house, I pasted on my smile. You know the one. Tight at the corners. Eyes wide enough to seem happy. Practiced. Marlene's house looked like a magazine spread from 1985. Heavy floral curtains. Cream-colored carpet that no one dared step on with shoes. Glass figurines in every corner. As we walked in, Marlene air-kissed Caleb and gave me the kind of hug you give a stranger at a funeral. "Laura," she said, all breath and no warmth. "You look nice." "Thank you," I said, my voice light, non-threatening. The house buzzed with people, Caleb's sisters, their husbands, kids racing around, and Brenda loudly telling everyone how much her new hip cost, Uncle Pete nursing a gin and tonic in the corner. I drifted to the kitchen to drop off the lemon bars. Cheryl was arranging a tray of shrimp cocktail. She gave me a quick once-over and turned back to her work without a word. I stood there for a second, feeling stupid, before heading back to Caleb, who was already deep in conversation with Uncle Pete about snow tires. I knew my place. Smile, nod, stay invisible. "Hey, Laura." Blake, Caleb's cousin, popped up with a plastic cup of pink punch. He was younger, friendlier, maybe not fully trained in the family's art of disdain yet. "You made it." "Wouldn't miss it," I said, taking the cup. Blake shifted awkwardly, eyes flicking behind me. I followed his gaze. Cheryl and Moira were standing by the fireplace, whispering and shooting glances in my direction. "You okay?" Blake asked, voice low. "I'm fine," I lied. "Go mingle. I'll be around." He gave me a half-hearted smile and melted back into the crowd. It was around 3 when Aunt Brenda clinked her fork against her wine glass. "Family picture time," she declared, her voice ringing through the living room. Everyone started shuffling into place. Caleb drifted toward the group without even glancing at me. I set my punch down, waiting for someone to wave me over. For Caleb to pull me into the frame. For Marlene to say, of course, Laura too. Instead, I heard it. Clear as a bell. Aunt Brenda, stage whispering to Cheryl, "Just keep her out of the frame." My heart hit the floor. I watched them pose, arms around each other, all bright smiles and good teeth. Caleb stood between Cheryl and Marlene, his hand on Cheryl's shoulder like it belonged there. I forced a laugh, pretending I hadn't heard. Pretending my skin wasn't burning. "It's okay," I said, loud enough for everyone to hear. I stepped back, careful not to knock over a porcelain angel on the mantel. I don't belong in perfect pictures. Nobody protested. Nobody said, "No, Laura, come here." They just smiled, flashed the camera, and that was that. The rest of the afternoon dragged on like a bad dream. Paper plates. Birthday cake. Small talk about local politics. Caleb talking about the hardware store like he was running for office. I stood by the window, watching the clouds gather, the light getting mean and gray. Nobody noticed. Caleb barely looked at me. After a while, I wandered out to the backyard. The swing creaked under me as I sat down, the cold was seeping through my dress. I pulled out my phone, scrolled mindlessly. That's when it buzzed. A message from Sadie, my best friend since high school. Sadie, hey, you need to see this. Wasn't sure if I should send it, but you deserve to know. I stared at the attachment. Fingers trembling, I opened it. There it was. A photo. Caleb. At a restaurant I didn't recognize. Leaning across a table. Smiling at Maura. Holding her hand. I blinked, thinking maybe I was wrong. Maybe it wasn't Maura. Maybe it wasn't even Caleb. But it was. I knew the way his fingers curled, the way his head tilted when he was trying to look charming. I stared at that screen until my vision blurred. Another buzz. Another message from Sadie. Sadie. That was last Thursday. They were at the Hollow Bar Plus kitchen. Sorry, Laura. The Hollow. Downtown Albany. A place Caleb and I had never gone to together because, as he put it, it's too noisy and expensive. I sat there, cold to the bone, while inside the house they sang happy birthday and laughed and lived their perfect little lives. I could have walked back inside. Could have smiled and cut the cake and driven home with Caleb like nothing happened. But something inside me snapped. Quietly. Cleanly. Like a thread pulled too tight for too long. I stood up, my legs shaky. And I walked inside. The noise hit me like a wall when I stepped inside, laughter, forks scraping plates, the clink of glasses. The birthday song was just winding down. Caleb stood right next to Marlene, one hand on her back, his face the picture of dutiful son-in-law perfection. I caught Caleb's eye across the room. For a split second, something flickered there. Guilt? Fear? Recognition? He looked away almost immediately. I crossed the living room slowly, feeling like I was moving through water. Nobody stopped me. Nobody even noticed me. At the kitchen counter, Moira was cutting the cake. She looked up and flashed me a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Lemon bar, she offered, holding out the tray like we were best friends. I just stared at her, silent. Her smile faltered. She quickly busied herself slicing another piece of cake. Aunt Brenda caught sight of me and muttered something to Cheryl. Cheryl's eyes slid over to me and then quickly away. The realization hit me harder than the photo had. They knew. They all knew. Maybe not every detail, but enough. Enough to exclude me from their stupid family picture. Enough to make me an outsider in a house where I was supposed to be family. I walked over to Caleb, who was laughing at something Marlene said. Hey, I said, voice low and steady. He turned, blinking like he was surprised to see me there. Hey, babe, he said, like nothing was wrong. You good? I stared at him, really looked at him. The way he smiled at me like I was a customer in his store. Polite. Distant. I held up my phone, showing him the photo without a word. He paled. Fast. Laura, he started. I didn't give him the chance. How long? I said, my voice slicing through the room like a cane fee. Conversation around us died instantly. Heads turned. Forks froze halfway to mouths. Laura, can we? Caleb said, trying to usher me toward the hallway. Answer the question, I said louder. Marlene stepped forward, her hand out like she was calming a wild horse. Maybe we should talk about this privately, dear. I laughed. It wasn't a nice laugh. Oh, now you want privacy? Funny, you weren't whispering when you told them to keep me out of the picture. Brenda gasped. Cheryl turned scarlet. Caleb's face twisted, somewhere between anger and panic. It's not what you think, he said. Then what is it? I asked. Nobody spoke. Finally, Moira, sweet, soft-spoken Moira, set the cane nuffy down and said, it just happened, Laura. It wasn't planned. Her voice was trembling, like she was the victim here. How long? I said again, turning back to Caleb. He opened his mouth, closed it, rubbed the back of his neck. About 6 months, he muttered. 6 months. Half a year of lies. Half a year of sitting across from me at dinner, sleeping next to me in bed, telling me he loved me. I felt like I was going to throw up. We didn't mean to hurt you, Moira said quickly. Didn't mean to? I repeated, my voice shaking now. You did hurt me. You're still hurting me. Marlene stepped in again, voice firm. Laura, honey, things are complicated. Maybe you should take some time to yourself. Cool down. Think rationally. Rationally. I turned to her, feeling something ugly and powerful rising inside me. You mean leave quietly, I said. Pretend it didn't happen. Make it easier for all of you. Marlene didn't deny it. Of course she didn't. This wasn't just about Caleb and Moira. It was about all of them. Their little circle. Their precious image of themselves. There was no place for me in it. There never had been. I didn't say anything else. Didn't cry. Didn't scream. I walked to the kitchen counter, picked up the container of lemon bars, and dumped them straight into the trash. Then I walked out the front door without looking back. The cold air slapped me awake. I stood on the front porch, breathing hard, blinking back tears. Caleb followed me out a second later. Laura, wait, he called. I kept walking. Down the steps. Across the lawn. He caught up to me by the driveway, grabbing my arm. Let me explain, he said. I shook him off. You think there's anything left to explain? His face crumpled. For a moment, I thought he might actually cry. It was a mistake, he said, voice raw. I got close to her when you and I, after we stopped trying. I was lonely. She understood. I stared at him, stunned. You were lonely, I repeated slowly. He nodded miserably. You understood, I said. But I was there. Every damn day I was there. I know, he said. You didn't even fight for me, I said. My voice cracked. You just let them cut me out of the picture. Like I was never even there. He wiped his face, shaking his head. I didn't know it would get this far. Yeah, I said. You didn't know because you didn't care. I opened the car door, slid into the driver's seat. Caleb leaned down, hands on the frame. Laura, please. Let's just go home. We'll figure it out. I stared straight ahead. There's nothing to figure out, I said. And I slammed the door in his face. I peeled out of the driveway, tires crunching over the gravel, and didn't look back. I drove without thinking, just aimless streets blurring past, streetlights turning the wet pavement gold. I must have circled downtown twice before I ended up in the parking lot of the Hollow Bar Plus kitchen, the place where Caleb and Moira had their cozy little date. I sat there in the driver's seat, engine ticking, heart hammering against my ribs. Inside, I could see couples laughing over candlelit tables. A band was setting up near the back, some guy testing a mic with a low hum. It was a Thursday night when Caleb came here. Thursday was supposed to be our grocery night. Pizza and reruns on the couch. He lied about late inventory at the store. I could almost see him there, his easy smile, Moira leaning in close, pretending to care about hardware and lumber and whatever nonsense he fed her. I gripped the steering wheel until my knuckles turned white. The worst part wasn't even the cheating. It was realizing how small I'd let myself become. How many dinners I spent laughing at jokes that weren't funny. How many birthdays and Christmases and lazy Sundays I sat there, invisible, making myself smaller, quieter, more agreeable, just to fit in. And for what? So they could shove me out of the frame like an unwanted guest at a party. I pulled out my phone. Sadie's number was right there at the top. She picked up on the first ring. Laura, she said, voice sharp with worry. I opened my mouth, but for a second nothing came out. Just a low, shaky breath. I saw the photo, I finally said. Sadie was silent for a moment. Come over, she said. Right now. I'll open a bottle of wine. 2 bottles. I managed a broken laugh. I don't even know what I'm doing, I admitted. You're surviving, Sadie said simply. Come over. 20 minutes later, I was curled up on Sadie's couch, a blanket around my shoulders, a glass of cheap red wine in my hand. Her living room was a mess, kids' toys scattered everywhere, a half-eaten bag of goldfish crackers on the coffee table, but it felt more like home than my own house had in months. Sadie sat across from me, legs tucked under her, studying me carefully. So what now? She asked. I shook my head. I don't know. I mean, it's not like I have anywhere else to go. The house is in both our names. The cars. The bills. It's all tangled up. Sadie leaned forward. You have me, she said fiercely. And you have rights, Laura. Don't you dare let him scare you into backing down. I wiped at my eyes, careful not to spill the wine. I keep thinking about the way they looked at me, I said, voice breaking. Like I was less. Like I didn't matter. Sadie's jaw tightened. You do matter. And you're gonna show them just how much they screwed up. I gave her a shaky smile. How? She grinned, wicked. First, you lawyer up. And second, you hit them where it hurts. The next morning, I woke up on Sadie's couch, my neck sore, but my mind clear for the first time in months. I called out of work. I wasn't about to clean plaque off people's teeth while my whole life was falling apart. Instead, I drove downtown to meet Margot Stern, the meanest divorce attorney in Albany. She came highly recommended. Sadie's cousin had used her and apparently left her ex-husband crying in a lawn chair while she got the house, the car, and the dog. Margot didn't disappoint. She was about 50, sharp as a tack, with close-cropped silver hair and reading glasses that hung around her neck on a beaded chain. She listened without interrupting as I spilled the whole ugly mess, the birthday party, the photo, the affair. When I finally ran out of words, she steepled her fingers and said, "Good news is, you're married. And New York's an equitable distribution state. Infidelity won't change the division of assets much, but it sure as hell can give you leverage." I blinked. Leverage? She smiled thinly. You get him scared enough, he'll give you whatever you ask just to make it go away quietly. I left her office feeling like I had armor on for the first time in years. The next few days were a blur of meetings, paperwork, and whispered phone calls during Caleb's work hours. He texted a few times. "Caleb, can we please talk? I miss you." "Caleb, you're overreacting." It wasn't serious. "Caleb, I still love you." I didn't respond. Every time his name popped up on my screen, I felt a cold anger settle deeper into my bones. He didn't love me. He loved the version of me that didn't cause problems. That stayed quiet. That disappeared when it was convenient. Saturday morning, I went back to the house. Caleb wasn't there, probably at Mora's. The place looked smaller somehow. Sadder, like a stage set after the audience has gone home. I walked through the rooms, the kitchen where I baked cookies every Christmas, the living room where we binge-watched terrible TV shows, the bedroom where I cried silent tears into my pillow more nights than I could count. I packed what I needed. Clothes, jewelry, important papers, a few photos from before everything went sour. I left my wedding ring on the dresser. On the way out, I saw it, the family portrait from 2 years ago, hanging over the mantel. Marlene beaming, Caleb's arms slung around my shoulders, me smiling so hard my cheeks ached. I yanked it down, shoved it face first into the trash. As I closed the door behind me, I realized I wasn't sad. I was free. After I moved out, I stayed with Sadie for a few weeks. Her kids loved having me around, and honestly, being surrounded by that messy, chaotic, real love was good for my soul. Meanwhile, Margot worked her magic. Every couple of days, Caleb would call. Then text, then email. Each message got a little more desperate. "Caleb, please, Laura, let's fix this." I don't even know what I was thinking. "Caleb, you're blowing this up way bigger than it needs to be." "Caleb, we can still have a future." I ignored them all. Margot sent the divorce papers over to Caleb's lawyer. The terms were BRTL, but fair. I wasn't just asking for half the house. I was asking for the whole damn house, spousal support, and a clean break from every single asset he thought he owned. And because Margot was smart, she included the photos. Just a few. Enough to make it clear that if Caleb wanted to argue about money in court, those pictures, Caleb holding hands with his cousin, could become very public. It didn't take long for Caleb to fold. His lawyer called Margot less than 48 hours later. "He's willing to agree to everything," Margot told me with a smile. Apparently he's worried about his mother finding out the full story. I laughed, a real laugh from deep in my belly. "Oh, don't worry," I said. "She's going to find out anyway." A week later, I got my chance. Marlene was throwing another party. Some cousin's engagement or something. Everybody was invited. Even me, though I'm sure that invitation was an afterthought. I decided to go. Sadie helped me pick out the perfect outfit, sleek black slacks, a silky deep green blouse, sharp heels. I looked good. Strong. Unapologetic. When I walked into Marlene's house, the whole room went weirdly quiet for a second. Then the polite murmur of conversation started up again, but softer. Marlene bustled over, her mouth tight. "Laura," she said. "You look, well." "I am," I said, smiling sweetly. Caleb was across the room, pale and stiff, standing next to Maura, who couldn't meet my eyes. I made a point of walking right past them without so much as a glance. Throughout the party, people kept coming up to me. Some out of real kindness, some out of curiosity. I smiled, I chatted, I acted like the woman I used to be before I shrunk myself down to fit their expectations. And then, when the timing was perfect, after Marlene made her big, self-important speech about family values, I cleared my throat. "Mind if I say a few words?" I asked, loud enough for everyone to hear. The room froze. Marlene's smile faltered. But she nodded, because she couldn't say no without looking rude. I stepped into the center of the room, glass of champagne in hand. I just want to say how grateful I am, I began. Really, I mean it. People shifted uneasy. Because if it weren't for this family, I continued, I might have stayed in a marriage that wasn't just broken, but built on lies. I might have kept believing I belonged somewhere I was never truly welcome. Whispers rippled across the room. Marlene opened her mouth, but I raised a hand. I'm especially grateful to Maura, I said, smiling directly at her, for showing me who my husband really was. Not everyone gets that kind of clarity. Maura's face went beet red. Caleb stared at the floor. I turned back to Marlene. And thank you, Marlene, for keeping me out of the family picture. You were right. I didn't belong in it. I set my champagne glass down on the nearest table, nodded politely, and walked out. No tears. No shouting. No scenes. Just the truth, laid bare for everyone to see. The fallout was delicious. Sadie heard through the grapevine that Marlene had a full meltdown after I left. That Caleb tried to spin it as a one-time mistake, but nobody bought it. That Maura's engagement to some poor guy she'd been stringing along got called off. As for Caleb, he signed the divorce papers. I got the house. I got a fair chunk of money. And he got to stay right where he belonged, alone, with the family who helped him destroy everything good he ever had. I didn't look back. I bought new furniture for the house. Painted the kitchen walls a sunny yellow. Adopted a scruffy old golden retriever from the shelter and named him Murphy. I started taking weekend trips. Started going out to dinners where I wasn't the invisible one. Started laughing real, full-body laughing the way I hadn't in years. Sadie called one night after I sent her a picture of Murphy sprawled across my brand new couch. How does it feel, she asked, being the one who walked away first. I smiled. It feels like freedom.